Today, we are diving deep into one of the most powerful chapters in the entire Bible, Psalm 91. I want you to think of it like a blueprint for a spiritual fortress, a divine design for how to live in a place of absolute safety and protection. So let's just start with a question. Look around. In a world that feels so uncertain, in our own lives, where do you go to feel safe? Where do you find your fortress? That question right there is the very heart of Psalm 91. Because the reality is, we're surrounded by threats every single day. Some are obvious, things we can see, but a lot of them are those unseen anxieties, the fears that creep in. Now, Psalm 91 doesn't pretend these don't exist. No, instead, it gives us the solution, a complete blueprint for living under God's total protection. So, how do we get inside this divine fortress? Well, what's really interesting is that the psalm starts not with a promise, but with a condition. There's a specific place we have to be, spiritually, to get this kind of security. Let's dig into what that is. The very first verse lays it all out for us. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Did you catch those two key words? Dwelleth and abide. This isn't about popping in for a quick visit when you're in trouble. This is talking about a permanent home, a settled residence. This is the foundation for every single promise that follows. So what does it really mean to dwell? Well, this secret place isn't a spot on a map you can go to. It's a spiritual state of being. It's about living in this deep, unbroken fellowship with God. It's about making Him your home, not just your emergency shelter you run to when things go wrong. And check out the names for God used right here. The Most High, that's El Elyon, which speaks to His absolute supreme authority over everything and everyone. And the Almighty, El Shaddai, speaks to His all-sufficient, unstoppable power. So you're dwelling with the one who has all the authority and all the power. Talk about security. Okay, so that brings up a really practical question. How do we do this? How do we dwell? Well, the psalm gives us some clues. First, it's about making that daily relationship with God your number one priority. Second, you have to consciously, intentionally shift your trust away from your circumstances and place it squarely on Him. And third, you do what the psalmist does next. You open your mouth and verbally declare your faith. All right, so now that we know the condition for getting into the fortress, let's look at the kind of protection we get once we're inside. The psalmist uses two absolutely beautiful and powerful images to describe it. Listen to that imagery. It's just amazing. On one hand, you have this soft, gentle, tender covering of a mother bird's feathers. And on the other, you have the hard, impenetrable armor of a warrior's shield. This one verse gives us the whole picture of God's care. So you see, there are two sides to God's protection. It's incredibly tender and personal, an image Jesus Himself used when He talked about a hen gathering her chicks. But it is also fiercely defensive. His truth, His unchanging character, literally becomes our armor against any and every attack. So, what's the result of living inside this fortress with this kind of coverage? Well, the outcome is a deep, profound confidence. It's a life that is finally set free from being ruled by fear. This is an incredible, almost unbelievable promise. Freedom from fear 24/7. It covers all the things that scare you in the dark and all the dangers that come at you in broad daylight. Just think about everything this covers. The terror by night, that's all those hidden anxieties, right? The worries that wake you up at 3 a.m. Then there's the arrow by day. Those are the obvious open attacks we face. Criticism, bad news, direct opposition. And the promise is a peace that holds steady through it all. So, how does God actually administer this moment-by-moment protection? Well, the psalm now reveals one of the most astonishing methods He uses. He actually dispatches angelic guardians to help us. This isn't a suggestion, it's a direct command, a charge that God gives to His angels to guard us in all our ways. And just look at the detail. The protection is so personal, so complete, it even covers the small stuff like tripping over a stone. It's amazing. But, and this is so important, there's a critical piece of context here. Satan himself quoted these exact verses when he tried to tempt Jesus to jump off the temple. And Jesus' answer teaches us something vital. This is a promise for us to trust while we're living in obedience, not a license for us to be reckless and test God. Now, the protection doesn't stop at just being defensive. It actually builds into a powerful offense. The promise of Psalm 91 isn't just about surviving attacks. It's about having total victory over our spiritual enemies. I mean, listen to this language of conquest. The lion that represents a powerful, roaring enemy that tries to intimidate you. The adder, or the snake, represents a subtle, poisonous enemy that attacks with deception. The promise is that you won't just survive them, you will have authority over them. So what we're really talking about here is spiritual warfare, not literal animals. This points directly to the spiritual authority that we, as believers, have in Christ to overcome all the power of the enemy. We move from just being defended to a place of complete victory. And now we get to the absolute climax of the entire psalm. After the psalmist has described all these incredible things, God himself steps in to speak directly. He confirms everything with his own covenant promises. This is God's final word on the matter. God starts by explaining the why behind it all. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. He says the reason for all this protection is because he had set his love upon me, and because he hath known my name. It all flows out of love and intimacy. And flowing directly from that loving relationship, God himself makes a series of 7, count them, 7 powerful, personal I will promises. This is his covenant pledge, his guarantee of the fortress for the person who chooses to dwell with him. Just listen to this cascade of promises. God says, I will deliver him. I will set him on high. I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. I will satisfy him with long life. And then, the ultimate final promise, I will show him my salvation. This is the whole package, the complete scope of God's covenant care for his children. So, we've walked through the blueprint of this divine fortress. We've seen the condition for getting in, the incredible coverage you get inside, and the covenant from God himself that guarantees it all. Really, the only question left is the one you see right here. Will you choose to live there? This devotional explainer was brought to you by the You Need Faith in Jesus team. Thank you so much for joining us.